The views and opinions expressed by the guests of Sasquatch Experience do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the hosts, sponsors, or affiliates of the Sasquatch Experience. As always, listener discretion is advised.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Does a legend walk among us, lurking in the forests of our world?
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something that looks like a man. I don't know what it was.
For over 15 years, we've talked with scientists, researchers, investigators, and witnesses, trying to gain insight and proof around the existence of this mysterious entity.
Jesus Christ, you better... Gia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Join us as we continue into the investigation of the Sasquatch Experience. And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sasquatch Experience. I'm Sean the Fork Chop Forker tonight, August the 28th, 2023. I don't know, guys. Nothing gets me jazzed as much as the Sasquatch Experience intro. When I hear that, I know it's time to get going. And I want to make bands do that live from here on out. You know, listener discretion is advised.
Yes.
I watch him recite it in the green room while we're all out there. And you know what? You're just going to do it live from here on out.
All right, then that's fine. Is it wrong for a man to tell another man not to touch his... Never mind.
Wow. Well, I don't know. It's welcome to science class, kids. Oh, guys, what a weekend it's been. Last episode, Daniel Perez. Folks, we do apologize for the delay in the launch of that episode, that podcast. I don't think I've ever been so frustrated editing an episode as I was with that. And we used AI to help us volumize Daniel Perez. And I know it did a little bit to the voice quality, but the fact of the matter is that we were able to salvage a good part of that interview and bring you a podcast that was pretty decent. And gentlemen, I apologize for my technical difficulties. You all stepped up and did well, and I was still able to produce from behind the scenes. So starting the show off with a little gratitude is never a bad thing. So thanks to you guys and thanks to our listeners for sticking.
Absolutely.
Among other news, of course, Matt and I spent the evening overnight in our area where we're researching. And though it was not an incredibly fruitful night, Matt, it was a good night, was it not?
Oh, absolutely. It was a great night to be out there. We got out there at, I don't know, probably about 6 o'clock. And between the time of 6 o'clock and 9 a.m. the next morning, there was not one car that came up that road. So we were in a very, very good area. And we did have something strange that occurred.
The rumbling sound.
The rumbling sound, yeah.
Yeah. We could not identify anywhere. It was interesting.
Well, do explain. Give a little more detail.
Well, at first, we were just sitting there around the campfire, myself, Les Sinkovich, our research partner, my son Gabe, Matt and I, and just having normal nighttime sounds, crickets, and then all of a sudden this loud kind of mechanical rumble that just came out of nowhere and then ended. And there was no way it could have been a vehicle because we would have seen it.
Mm-hmm.
That was bizarre, and
Yeah.
really, the thing of it is, we all commented that we were able to feel, just that bass kind of going through us. It really didn't scare us a whole lot. It was just one of those things that we were intrigued by, but it sounded to me almost like a tractor starting up, or
Yeah.
a tractor that's coming up there. And there were some, vehicles that were down in the lower part of the valley that the state has there to work on drainage and such. But this here, there was nothing for, I think, about 3 miles. There was no mechanical equipment there, and we just heard this. We just heard this rumble that kind of went through us, and it was unexplainable. The one thing that I wanted to note with that particular location, the only thing that we get that's really not a natural sound is unless or Vance as a pilot, this would be intriguing. We have what's called the Slate Run. I guess it's it's one of the towers, or I guess it's a radio beacon that when the planes are flying commercially or any sort of commercial instrument flights going from basically from west to east, if they're going into LaGuardia, JFK, Boston, any of those airports, they fly over what's called the Slate Run, and I forget what the term is for it.
That's okay. Go on. A lot of them are called VOR, but go ahead.
Yes, the VOR. So Slate Run does have one.
Right.
So the only unnatural noise that you're hearing, outside of just the people that are there, is the sound of airplanes. Now, usually at night, you might get a red-eye flight. You might get a lot of them are actually transport planes that go back and forth, like FedEx, UPS.
Right.
They'll be flying in the middle of the night, but there's a distinct difference between what we heard in. When you have the aircraft go over, you can hear it tail off. This here, it was loud, and we're all looking down the road waiting for headlights.
It was abrupt.
Yes. And then it was, as it probably went, I don't know, probably about 15 seconds, 20 seconds at the most, and then it just died. But it was a very odd sound, yeah.
Well, I guess between that sound and then the sound of a woman's voice,
Yes.
that was the other thing that was interesting, but you couldn't localize it,
Wow.
right? It was just several times that Les and my son heard, and they were sitting on the other side of where Matt and I were sitting. Both of them had indicated that they heard what sounded like a woman just like whispering or
wow.
interesting. But
that has to be probably, and I'm just taking a ballpark swing here, probably the 6th time in a encounter story where I've heard those terms being used. It sounded like a softly spoken, or a woman whispering, or a woman speaking. That's crazy.
The other thing that I'll note, and my son, he and I decided to sleep in our car because we arrived late, and Matt and Les also decided to sleep in their vehicles for no reason, not a fear thing or anything else, just a comfort thing. And we left at about 3 a.m. and drove back home and there was an absence of animals. The complete drive from our campsite down that 12 miles to the bottom of the road,
Right.
on that mountain road, there were no animals. Nothing. Not a deer, not a porcupine, not a fox, nothing. I just found that very interesting. We saw no wildlife at all that night. We heard things walking around the forest, but we saw nothing.
Okay. Let's say in a different situation where you didn't have any kind of strange outside interference, what would the wildlife action be if you traveled back there? Would there be activity from porcupine and deer and skunk?
Well, it's
et
typical.
cetera?
It's
Yeah.
typical everywhere, and I just found it strange that we even went out and we walked the road. That no matter where we went, there was no wildlife presenting itself. We went into that field, no wildlife. And Matt, you kind of have to set the stage for him with the type of forest that this is. And before we do that, Les said it was as if you could hear a woman having a normal conversation, but out in the distance.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've heard
That's
that.
creepy.
Physically.
Yeah.
James, you've heard that several times.
Could you hear the bees?
No, not this time. We actually, Les and I had both in the morning. I took him over to the meadow, and the meadow area is where Sean James and I had gone previously, and it's actually an incredible natural area where it sounded as if we had a swarm of bees that were probably somewhere not that far from us, and you would think that if you walked in the woods, you'd find a big, tree covered in bees. That's how loud it was. That's how many there were. What it wasn't bees all centered in on one location. It was the bees spread out amongst this whole meadow.
It was quite
And
beautiful.
literally every foot that we stepped, there were honeybees out there collecting pollen, which was absolutely amazing.
And never were they
You
aggressive.
could hear them and the frogs, and like this was during the day. That's why I'm kind of interested. We were there 2 weeks ago. It
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
But it was an average day. It wasn't over warm. It wasn't over cold. But you could hear the animals. And when we looked over that one cliff ridge area, you could see animals.
Yes.
And when you could hear birds moving from tree to tree and things like that.
Yes.
So it's not like the place is devoid of life.
No.
It's just and it's not November. Is that region a hunting region or is that a preserve region?
That's a big hunting region up there. So
Okay. Because
But
usually
then-
around October, November, they back off of that,
Yes.
like deer and the bigger animals, because they're
Yes.
like, oh, no, wait, gun people are coming. We need to,
Right?
Yes. Well, and again, with this particular area, and I had shown you guys the maps. There's literally from the road where the road is, and it's just this little dirt logging road that stretches, a pretty good distance. But to the west, it drops down into the valley. Then it rises up to another ridge. Then it drops down to another valley. It rises up to a second ridge. Then it drops down again, and then you have the creek and the next road. So there's, put it this way, there's deer up there that probably never saw a person.
Sure.
Yeah, especially in some of those back hollows, and there's a lot of little hollows throughout that whole mountain range up there. But to try to set this up for everyone, it was where this is. Again, it's a very remote area. It's a mix of hardwoods. There's a lot of pine trees throughout, especially in the hollows. It's a very mountainous region, so it's not. I'm usually going to an area where it's more of a plateau. This is ridge and valley, ridge and valley, ridge and valley. The only real I guess impact from people up there, other than for camping and other outdoor activities, is the gas industry. And the one thing is we do have the gas lines that come through, which, believe it or not, they make great corridors for wildlife coming through.
Right.
And the gas wells themselves are very, they're very small. They don't have that impact to the environment, just on the whole, as like coal mining or
Yeah, they're not enormous pads.
Yeah, like you see them and you have to look for them. Otherwise you just see the strips. So where we were actually we were at the first campsite, which I'll go back to the second campsite afterwards. But The first campsite, it backs up to the field, which is this. Basically, it's not the meadow. This is basically a run where the gas line was. It's about, I'd say, a good 50 yards in width, and it just stretches for miles. When Les and I had first got there, we came out, and directly in the field, there was a skull there, which we believe to be probably, it looks like an ungulate, so it's probably going to be a fawn, a baby deer. Off probably about 10 yards away, getting closer to the middle of the field, we actually found the femur bone. So going through that particular stretch, we did see a lot of animal scat. Les and I had found bear scat through there. You could tell it was eating berries. And there was also, I didn't see much sign of elk there, but we do know that elk do travel through there, but there was definitely signs of deer throughout that area. So, again, it was a long drive up to this area, and really to the next, little collection of camps. It's about another 8 miles. And when we drove through there on Sunday morning, me and Les, there was only one person, one camp that was being used out of maybe about 10 camps in that little area. So there were not a lot of people out there. The one thing is that Sean and I were talking about is we have an area up here where we have, just an immense, system of ridges, valleys, with no roads to them. We have, so you have a place for something, a large mammal to hide. Mm-hmm. We also have food throughout there. The one thing is when Les and I examined the bear scat, we found that there was a lot of berries in the scat. So that was evident, just from, we didn't take it apart, but, you could just tell it was loaded with berries. So there's obviously enough food there to keep bears happy. And then you have the water sources. So there are, you'll have the creeks that feed into, one of the two major streams up there. And then not only do you have those creeks, but then you have the feeder streams, and they kind of cut off into little valleys themselves. So there is enough places there to, for something to hide.
And with all the rain we've had, they were pretty active, those feeder streams.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Now, the one thing is like we described it, it's like a needle in a haystack. So, we could have been there and they could have been 8 miles away, but, we're looking at a place with historical, data. So, we, under the Cliff Brockman, train of thought, if there are historical sightings there, especially for how long that they've been going on, there's a good chance, especially if nothing has changed.
Sure.
There's a chance that.
And you and I have both, talked to people in the area. I've, had a, conversation with a man who is diehard set for the fact that at the end of August, which is the time we were up there, he begins to notice something being around his properties. He notices the smell coming back that is absent for a while. He, and then towards November that one year, he had a deer stolen right off his back porch that was hanging. And it wasn't dragged. It was picked up and taken.
That's right.
And this isn't that far from the area that we're staking out. And then there's been other sightings there in the 80s. And though I know sometimes it seems like, wow, the 80s, that's a long time. You guys have to understand, listeners and the folks watching, that Pennsylvania has a lot of Bigfoot activity. But if you look at it on a map, predominantly it's in the southwestern part of the state. And the thing is, that's where most of the researchers have been. Very rarely have there been long-term researchers out here, aside from myself and others, for the last 20 years. And we're just now getting people comfortable talking about it. And I think part of that is just Matt's pleasant demeanor. He's just so nice and trusting, you want to talk to Matt
Right.
about your Bigfoot sighting. And as
Right.
he spends more time up there. He doesn't shy away from it. He doesn't go
Yeah.
out there and broadcast, "Hey, I'm a Bigfoot researcher." But if the opportunity comes up, he's not going to shy away from it. So I think part of the thing, to your credit, Matt, is why we're starting to get more information. And to say nothing of the festival when we were down there,
Yep.
people coming up to us and like reaffirming the things you and I have already been really thinking about.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, with just talking about just having pleasant demeanor. I was talking to a gentleman. This is going back about 6 or 7 years ago, and he had told me. He said, "Hey, I just saw something weird, not that long ago." And I said, "What was it?" He said, "Well, you know what? We're coming up on turkey season. And this was in the spring, and you also have trout season, which kind of run. Trout season is about 2 weeks before turkey season. I was up there about a week before because I wanted to get out there before all of the the campers got up there. And he had mentioned that he saw a guy on a ghillie suit crossing one of those gas lines."
Wow.
And he said this was about 3/4 up the mountain. The mountain itself is just a very treacherous climb going up and down. But to him, he thought it was a person. He thought it was somebody that was out there scouting for turkeys. He just thought it was weird that somebody went running across the power lines dressed in a ghillie suit. And it's conversations like that where, you don't have to say, "Oh, you definitely saw a Bigfoot." It's, "Hey, you know what? That's interesting." And, could somebody have gotten up there? Could, or is this a place that, again, there's no trails. It's extremely off trail. There's no way to go from one side to the other without, being 7 foot tall and being able to climb over boulders, so, and then the other thing too, just, I don't want to scare Sean, but when I was on my way home on Sunday and I was going through my other research area, I happened to see 2 rattlesnakes that were on the road. I know. So
They were
we
on the
have to be
road?
careful. They were on the road.
Oh, good. Okay.
So I was going to stop and take a picture, but there was somebody that
Guys,
was.
I have an unsettling fear of
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know. Matt, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this
Yeah, no.
really begs a question to me.
Yeah.
So in let's say the turkey hunters or the trout fishermen, I don't know. I would like to take a survey of people to find out how many of these hunters and trout fishermen and outdoorsmen that want to shoot rabbits are aware of the whole Sasquatch community, and why would you be out there in a ghillie suit? Because you may be putting yourself into some serious jeopardy without having some blaze orange on.
Yeah.
You could catch.
Oh,
a toe
absolutely, absolutely. Now, for bow hunting and for turkey hunting here in Pennsylvania, you should have your fluorescent orange on when you're going to your tree stand or you're going to your to where you're going to call the turkeys. But once you get to that spot, you can take that orange off. Okay. So, but somebody just running arbitrarily, in a ghillie suit 3/4 of the way up the mountain, about 1,700 feet, that's definitely kind of odd.
Yeah. I would think, just offhand, I would think that there has to be some sort of a thought process to go, I might be misdiagnosed as something else, and maybe I'll get shot at. A ghillie suit's a wonderful thing, believe me, but not in that type of environment. I can understand for, the sniper purposes, or if you're in a duck blind, you might want a ghillie suit. But if you're running around with the thing, that's a whole different ballgame to me, in my thought process anyway. And I don't know how other hunters may think about that.
Yeah. And again, I'm an outdoorsman. I spend a lot of time in the outdoors, and I'm a hunter. I'm a fisherman. What I generally do is I'll hike into the more remote areas, especially for the fishing. But when I'm out there, if I'm out there in the spring turkey season,
Right.
And I'm not hunting. I'm going to go out and hit, one of these little wilderness trout streams, that are here in Pennsylvania. I will wear an orange hat. I will have, if I have a fluorescent orange vest, I'll wear that vest. I want to be seen.
Right.
But
Matt, you would know because I'm not a hunter, but
yeah.
Is there a percentage of orange or fluorescent that you're required to wear to have a hunting license?
250 square inches for rifle season, which is going to be a vest and a hat. So as long as you have a vest and a hat, you're good. Small game's a little different, turkey's a little different, but you do need to at least have orange on when you're going back and forth to the stands. So, but if you're going out for small game, which is generally you're out in a field or you're in more of a open area, you can have a little less fluorescent orange. Usually you'll have just the vest or maybe just a hat. Right. And yeah,
because you don't want a Dick Cheney situation.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
Wow.
But the other thing too, going and I'll talk a little bit about hunters in Pennsylvania and fishermen too. Historically, by the way, I have a train coming through, so hopefully it's not going to make too much noise.
Oh,
I know.
Your train's beating mine.
Is that a train?
Yes. So, anyways, what I was going to say is, the majority of hunters in Pennsylvania don't go more than 200 yards from where they either park their car or their ATV. You don't get a lot of people going into. You do, but you don't get that mass. We call it the Orange Army. In the fall, where they're going out and driving deer. Most of the time, they're not that far from from where the logging road is. They're not that far from where they park their ATV.
Because you got to drag that deer
in just a little bit. Yeah,
that's a good point.
So, so they're not going. A lot of them they're not going into these areas. We went in last year. We were hunting an area and we were kind of going in there blind. We saw the area from the maps, but we really didn't get a chance to put a lot of boots on the ground. Opening day, we did not see another hunter on that entire mountain. So, and that wasn't in this area. This was just to the west of the area where, it's a little more population. So just imagine going where we are in our research area and then going into one of these hollows. I mean, it usually, I know for somebody like myself, it would be almost like an overnight trip going out there, but and James, the one thing is you were with us and you saw how steep when we went to that one gas line, how steep that terrain was. It was almost like a cliff. So you have to deal with terrain like that. Les and I, when we were out there on Sunday, we went to the overlook, and we looked down. Believe it or not, there is a trail that goes down, but the trail to go down, it's nearly vertical. So I mean, it's we don't know what's coming up. If that's, it looked like it was pretty worn, but it had to have been, maybe a game trail at some point.
All right. Well.
Yeah. But the area, Sean, if you want to, pipe in on a couple more observations you had, being there at night.
Yeah. So, I mean, nighttime was a different experience than being there during the day. There's a lot of, how do you explain it? Like, for me, there's a level of comfort because I can see where I'm going during the daytime. At nighttime, it gets so dark without that light. Like, you really can't see where you're going. And again, rattlesnakes, not a fan. So you asked Matt, I'm walking around like a blind man and my cane tapping on the ground so I don't get bit by a rattlesnake.
Which is acceptable. Yeah, which is fine. That's a good thing to do. So between that and being aware, you could potentially run into a bear up there, but for the most part, the bears aren't. I think up there, especially, they're much more timid of people. We didn't have, even for, for us being up there, and we didn't have any food out, but you would think that we would have had a bear come through our camp, and we did not.
Nothing.
And-
That was the thing. Man.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah,
And we had crickets. I mean, it wasn't like there was an
Yeah.
absence of any kind of noise, but
yeah,
it was just, to me, it was strange. Maybe they're just that not used to people that they just keep themselves hidden when something new is there, because there was
Yes.
no vehicles that came through besides ours that entire night.
yes,
Even at
Yes.
3 a.m. when I drove back down that mountain, which seems like it's not a big drive, but it's a big drive.
Mhm.
There was nobody else on the road. It was just
Yes.
me and my son driving down a dark, desolate mountain road,
Yeah.
and no wildlife, which is just freaking me out because I'm like, at some point, well, we're
Yes.
going to see a deer. We saw one deer on Renovo Road, in somebody's front yard, Matt, that entire time. I
Yeah.
had to leave the
Wow.
forest to see a deer. Go figure. So
Yeah.
we got to take our news break. We come back. We'll actually get into the meat and potatoes. It was a good weekend. We had a great time. Just to put a cap on it, Matt, thank you for setting it up.
Yeah. Yep.
And we'll have a video of our event available to Patreons. Our Patreon, of course, patreon.com/Sasquatch Experience, available for guys. How much? $2 a month. You'll get access to our videos and everything else we got going on. So, folks, we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Smoke them if you got them. Sasquatch Experience here on StreamYard, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. You name it, we're there. See you in a little bit.
News team, assemble!
Ah, yes, this is the bottom of the hour, the Bigfoot Bullhorn, right here on the Sasquatch Experience. Hope you're all having a wonderful Monday night as we are heading full speed, head first, into the dark season. Hope everyone recovered well over this past summer weekend, which is coming to a close quickly. I think I kind of made that point already, but here we go on the Bigfoot Bullhorn out of the state of Indiana. When Leroy Nail first heard Bigfoot reports in Indiana, he was skeptical. Maybe the international notorious Sasquatch lived in California or Canada, but here, in his home state? No way, Leroy said. Our woods are not deep enough. We don't have even enough forests. There was no way that a 7 or 8 foot tall creature out here could live comfortably, and that nobody has seen it. That all changed when he attended his first meeting of the Indiana Bigfoot Research Organization over 10 years ago. Its founder, Steve Abney, presented evidence that not only is there one of the hairy forest dwellers here, there are thousands, and Abney claimed to have lived with some of them. Wait, what now? I'm going to have to get back to you on an upcoming show about this guy who lived with Sasquatch, but the article doesn't talk about that. Well, it didn't take me too long to realize, hey, he's telling the truth, Leroy said. Just like that, the Martinsville native was converted from a Sasquatch skeptic to a die-in-the-wood believer. Highly intelligent, ape-like humanoids roam the Hoosier state, often just out of sight of watching us, Nail said. Today, the state highway technician leads Indiana's Bigfoot Research Group, which has steadily attracted more members over the years. The organization's Facebook page has over 3,000 followers, making it the largest group of its kind in the state of Indiana. Interest in the mythic creature is only growing, according to Nancy Nail, who is married to Leroy. The two have been invited to give more talks this year at libraries and other venues than ever before, she said. Even so, it seems more people are willing to actively and seriously believe in the forest dweller's existence than in years past, Nancy explained. I think it's more talked about now than it used to be, she said. More people believe than they used to. Or maybe some people are just a little less intimidated to say something than they used to be. During the past 10 years, Leroy and a dedicated group of researchers have responded to calls from people around the state of Indiana reporting a tall, hairy animal or animals near their homes or unearthly screams from the woods. Leroy doesn't take their word for it. Usually within minutes of receiving a call, He's in a truck driving, sometimes for hours, to collect evidence and hear first-hand accounts from those who believe they've encountered the clandestine creature. When we come back, mark your calendars for an up-and-coming event that you should not miss.
You're listening to the Sasquatch Experience.
Are you low on Bigfoot wares and apparel? Visit gotknockers.org to fill that void. Got Knockers has everything from soaps, plushies, shirts, hoodies, jewelry, and so much more. Inspired by a sighting of Bigfoot himself, Got Knockers was born. Visit gotknockers.org. Also, head on over to Facebook to Got Knockers community page, where you will find the best and brightest in the world of Sasquatchery. Got Knockers, brought to you by the mysterious tree knocker in the dead of night. gotknockers.org. Well, it's that time of year again to celebrate the history and mystery of the Mothman at the world's only Mothman Festival, held annually in downtown Point Pleasant, West Virginia, hometown of the Mothman himself, on Saturday, September 16th and Sunday, September 17th. A family-friendly event with plenty of Mothman things to do and see, including shopping and eating from the many festival vendors. There'll be a TNT bus tour, Mothman hayride on Saturday, and you get to listen to guest speakers who play a part in cryptozoology. And make sure you get your photo taken with the famous Mothman statue. Visit the world's only Mothman Museum. Visit the local shops and sites of Point Pleasant and more. Now, Mothman Festival is free admission, but some attractions throughout the festival do have an entry fee. For more information, just go to mothmanfestival.com. Thanks again for listening to this edition of the Bigfoot Bullhorn exclusively on the Sasquatch Experience. And until next time, keep your toes in the mud.
Thanks, Vance. Watched Henry get a little excited over that there on the background. Hey, Henry, how you doing?
Doing good.
All right. Folks, Sean Forker, Vance Nesbitt, James Baker, Henry May, and Matt Arner all here tonight. And now that we got our recap of Matt and I and our friend Les's adventure, and my son Gabe, from the weekend, we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the show. And I'm anxious for this because I was doing my typical social media perusal not long ago, and a man by the name of Carl Rose posted a question in the Coalition for Critical Thinking and Bigfoot Research. And his post goes as follows: exercise and ethics. Hypothetically, you are a Bigfoot believer hiking in a national park and happen upon a skull that is clearly too large and too different to be human. It is likely a Bigfoot skull. What do you do next? He further writes, being found in a national park, it is public property, which means if you report it, those foul skeptic scientists will get their hands on it. If it is, in fact, a Bigfoot skull, it will likely be worth millions. To the skeptics, do you report it and preserve the integrity of the site, or sneak it out of the park to make a fortune through black market auctions? Which of many possible actions do you take? So I took this question and spun it to the gentleman here. And of course, I'm sure they'll have their own variations upon the same said question. But guys, who wants to go first? What would you do
I will. I got my hand up.
Go ahead, Spanky.
Oh, okay. Well, once that question got presented to me, I really dug into what would the reality be instead of the fantasy. The reality is you come across it, first off, it's shock and awe to see something like this. And do I take it with me? I think my first reaction is I am going to scour visually every square inch in a 180-degree radius around me to see if there's a sentry in the area. My mind goes off to the point of, okay, so Sasquatch exists. Is there such a thing as murder in the Sasquatch community where one takes another one out and it's not buried? We've heard many stories, maybe they bury their own, but that doesn't mean that they all are of the same family and thought process. Maybe it was a criminal scene in the, who knows? I think the shock and awe of the whole thing is, but I would do my best to collect it, get it into my backpack after pooping my pants and get out of there as fast as I could. But then I'm left with the dilemma of, what do I do now? Who can I share this with? I could only share this with trusted friends. The question was brought up, it could be worth millions of dollars. But then who is going to come and attack to get hold of this evidence? Who am I going to share this with? I could share this with close trusted friends and they may have, wow, okay, this thing is real, but is it going to go onto the market for any kind of financial value? I don't know that I would do that. I think I would keep it under wraps, under promise of my close friends, trusted allies, such as you gentlemen, and keep it at that point, that if somebody needs to study it, that is a trustworthy value, okay, maybe so. Maybe I could give some DNA sample from it, but I don't know that my home would not be completely destroyed to get hold of this by any other entity if they ever found out about it.
Fair enough.
I get your point, and I there's a lot of value to that. My counterpoint on that one thing is like, who do you trust? Like, if I found a skull, first thing I would do is back away from it a little bit, try to take as much photographic evidence as I could, kind of look around to see how the skull got there. Mm-hmm. Like, if it's just a skull and not a body, then clearly something detached the head. We'll put it that way. And I don't want it to detach my head.
Right.
You know, and then, like, you have to look at, you know, was it, you know, what kind of area are you in? And, like, me, honestly, I would probably call Matt. Just because Matt understands forensics and some of the other BS that 90 people are going to ask. And then after I consulted with him, if I was able to do it in the moment and I knew that it was only taking the skull and the moment was the only way I could preserve it, then I'd find the most easiest way to preserve the evidence that wouldn't taint it as much as possible. And I probably would then consult Matt again, but probably the question is
Right.
well, because he does this kind of thing. You pick, you know, it's kind of like if I had a foot imprint, I'd send it to Meldrum.
Right.
Meldrum. You know what I mean? Like, if I had, you know, my thing with it is the biggest concern would be is, one, how the head got there, and two is, if I take this evidence, you have a valid point where people would destroy your world and things like that. But I think if you did it semi-discreetly, because I believe that we all, as researchers, have that little bit of a pocket, I can't think, evidence, we'll call it, pocket evidence. We have it in a drawer, or I don't have any, but I know that the guys that do this every weekend got something. They've got it. They've got it in a room, they've got it in a drawer. Loren Coleman hides it in his basement, God knows whatever, you know. But that stuff is all, like, that would be where I'd hide it until I could say, okay, I'm 100% sure this isn't a human. I'm 100% sure this isn't an ape. I've sent the pieces to 3 different people, and they've come back with, yeah, this has got to be something else. And then I would be kind of like, all right, let's give this to somebody who can release it into the wild blue yonder of people.
Right.
Because I had this discussion with Sean, an hour ago. If they found Bigfoot tomorrow, if I found it, once the general media and everybody found out and they could prove it was, we would all be involved for probably 6 months. And then the corporations and the billionaires and the high-end scientists and all the people that said we were not right would all swoop in and go, hey, you guys can go home now. We got what we needed from you. And hey, Baker, here's a check. Forget you know us.
Right.
And that's how I feel about that. But if I found a skull, I'll just brief about it is, I'd find out why it's there and scoop up as much stuff as I could and then wander off.
Right. Yeah, and I think I would do the same thing. I don't know how the rest of the gentlemen here feel, but I think I would do the same thing. I think I would scour the area and try to figure out as fast as I could what created just a skull to be here. And those thoughts that I brought up earlier, maybe murder does happen in the Sasquatch community. I don't know. I have no clue. But if it's left exposed where I come across it, I'm going to take it with me. But then how do I destroy part of that skull to send samples off to somebody else to confirm what it is? Well, where did you find it? Where was it at? We want more information about where this sample came from. I don't know how much more I'm going to give up about the area in which I found it from, because once you leak it to one person, that one person's going to share it with 6 other people. Those 6 other people are going to share it with 12 other people. And before you know it, you got somebody knocking on your door. I was like, I don't know.
Well, you guys have both made some pretty good points so far. Henry, what do you do?
Oh, goodness. Well, I'll probably get in contact with one of you guys first.
Not me.
Most likely Matt, because he's the forensic guy. And then probably, after a little bit of soul searching, I'd probably most likely send it to Meldrum. For sure.
Matt?
That would be...
So, and there's I don't know, I'm probably just the way I am. I would be, the very first thing I would do is I would find something of scale from which I can take photos. Because you can have a skull and I'll just go back to our skull in the field. That was a very small deer skull. So, but if I took the camera, I put it up close, I could say, "Oh my God, it's an elk." So I would take something of scale. If you don't have a ruler, if you don't have anything, well, guess what? What's always one size that they don't want us to use, but hey, in a bind, you can use it as a $1 bill.
$1 bill or a credit card, right? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's all one size. Yes, James. So that's one thing that I would do. However, it would be a shame because the skull itself that I find might be missing a molar tooth or two. When the photos are taken, but I would probably have something small like that that I can actually have tested independently. What I would do is once I'm in cell range, or if I have the satellite phone, I would be calling a news station first, then the park rangers. It just say it's on national forest land. I would be calling both. But I would make sure that the news people get there right before the park people do, that they're able to see this and document it. At that point, you're probably going to have a forensic team or anthropologist come in with the forensic team to examine how that skull is laying there, if there is a body there, if there's other bones there, because what they can do is they can, they'll actually sieve through the soil to see if there are any remnants of other bones there. If just in case, like the head was standing, it was basically up and the rest of the body's down, almost like in a diagonal. So that's the one thing. That's definitely something I would do. But I would definitely take the take a molar or two, just so that I have it, and I'd be sending it off. Right now, I'm pretty much sold on the North Carolina State program, for the DNA. So I'd probably be sending a sample of that out to them and seeing what they can get out of it.
So I have a question for you, Matt. In the scenario in which you just laid out, that you would contact media and then you would contact authorities beyond that, would you feel comfortable to continue video recording that action that took place once the media got there and once the authorities got there, and you're video recording, and you may, I'm not saying it would happen, but you may deal with some pushback of don't record this and we need your phone. Would you do that? Well, I don't know. I don't know how this rabbit hole goes. I don't know if you do a Facebook Live or not. I don't know.
I probably would, and I have to laugh at that, because the people that in my profession that really kind of, I can't say they get under our skin at all, but for some of the younger guys, they do, is the like First Amendment auditors. The people that go into the police stations with their cameras up, wanting to videotape everything.
Yeah, right.
We deal with them all the time, and honestly, the way I deal with it is, I'll actually go out and introduce myself, and I don't give them a hard time, because there's laws in there that if it's viewable by the public, it's something that could be recorded. So that's one thing where these First Amendment auditors will actually come in handy. But maybe I'll give one of them a call. They can come up and videotape, but they get a little, sometimes a little too pushy. And
I get it.
Again, I would definitely have the camera going. And the other thing too is, and this is something from my experience as a police officer, is I would document every single person that comes to that scene. Whether it's media, park rangers, get names, start a log, and
that's a good idea, right?
Yeah. And that way, the people that are there, and until it's handed off, minus one or two molars, once it's handed off then to, forensics or anthropologists, then, they can run their own at that point. And at least then you can kind of go through and say, okay, here's what I have. I had, this guy from ABC News, this person from, National Park Service were the two initial people that came in. There was a cameraman, there was this, and I have their names, that they can't come out and say, okay, well, we just had, this was found by some guy and he just left it there. And, no, you document everything. It's treated like a crime scene.
Right.
Because potentially, and the one thing is potentially it could be a crime scene, because unless it has a crowned head, which is indicative of some of the sightings that we have. Right. You don't know if Andre the Giant's twin is got decapitated out there.
That's a good point. That is a good point. You could be completely disrupting a huge event, a crime scene that you had no idea that you just bastardized by stuffing it into the backpack. I totally get that. I don't know. Again, I try to put myself into that scenario. In the most, I close my eyes and I put myself into the scenario, and I'm trying to play through the entire act. Is, well, what would I actually do? Initially, yeah, I think I would have picked the thing up and shoved it in my backpack and ran like a scared little schoolgirl out of the parking lot, but to get out of the woods. But it's what do you do with it after the fact? And you bring up a really good point, is that you start documenting pictures, you see if there's any other body parts there. And I kind of found my point that I brought up at the beginning. Do Bigfoot actually commit murder amongst each other? Who's to say? I know that's a whole different show. I get that. I totally get it. It's a whole other show. Right? I totally get that. But we haven't found a skull yet amongst the general public that we know of. Maybe authorities have come across a skull, but as far as researchers go, I don't see Jeff Meldrum with other than casted footprints. He does not have a skull sitting in his office. So
he would if I found one.
He probably does. It's probably that Bones clone's reproduction of the Gigantopithecus skull that he.
Yeah, well, maybe so, but an actual skull.
Is Henry trying to mute us?
I don't know. I think he's he's watching Star Wars.
Yeah. So for $2, you can be a Patreon, and if we get enough Patreons, I will do videos of me sending skulls to Meldrum.
Oh, so we got listen, we got some comments from the listeners. Hector, welcome Hector to the Sasquatch Experience. He said he was a first-time listener. I wouldn't let anyone know so the government doesn't unalive me. Which is a fair assessment. Smithsonian would confiscate it and it would never be found again. And that, to me, which we haven't said what I would do yet, and you may not find out till next week. And he strongly believes that Bigfoot buries their dead, which kind of goes into Vance's point. If they bury their dead, why the hell wasn't this one buried?
Right.
Bum. Uncle Zen says, grab it and run like hell out of the woods, and then who knows what. Spoken like a true forker right there. And $2 is a bargain. That's our executive producer, Brian Corbin. Talking about, of course, guys, our Patreon, which you could subscribe for as little as $2 a month.
$2.
Well,
now, I have to...
Go, Sean.
I have to tell you, and Bake, I'll let you jump in then, because my methodology is very similar to Matt's. And when he said pull the teeth, I'm like, that son of a bitch, because that's the first thing I do. I'd be yanking some teeth and then taking pictures of everything, making some phone calls, and I'm going to stay there and film everything, video everything. And Vance, if anybody wants to steal my phone, it's all going to be uploaded to our Google OneDrive anyhow.
Okay.
So go ahead. They can take it all they want. That shit's going to the cloud before they get it out of my dead hands.
Good for you.
And as for you don't need the whole skull. That's the thing.
No, I understand.
I think there's so much material that we get from the teeth. Sean Porter, yes. We get from the teeth, to Matt's point, it's just extra work trying to take the skull with you and trying to hide it.
No, and it's true because Gigantopithecus, look, teeth to work with. That was it.
Sure. But now also think about this, guys. You are removing something from federal land. You can get felony charges for stealing rocks from national parks. How does that work with skull?
Look, I will share something with you real quick.
Oh, no.
In the Badlands of South Dakota, I found a partial jawbone with a molar of a prehistoric something, and I chipped it out. I chipped that thing out of the lance. It's sitting on my shelf here. I'm not going to share that with any authorities because it's federal lands. But who pays for those federal lands? Sean Forker does, Vance Nesbitt does, Henry May does, Matt Arner does, James Baker does. We all pay for those federal lands, and it's still sitting here. I don't know what the jawbone is from, what prehistoric animal it is. I have no idea. I never sent it off to get any DNA done, but it's pretty damn cool.
Well, when the government decides to get petty, that's the problem. And when you're dealing with this, Hector You know, you haven't heard the story of the guy videotaping that giant that ended up dead. I don't think it has to be anything that serious for the government to take action against you. Once you have proven at some point to have broken a law, depending on how temperamental the prosecutor decides to be, is how much time you're going to end up fighting. And that's not even having to be undeaded if you did, in fact, find something that the government still doesn't want to exist. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
Or
And we
while
can
they're
get-
looking at you, they can add whatever they want that you did that you know. We've
Sure.
all committed some kind of crime that we're not aware of. You know.
Why are you
littering,
looking at
God
me?
knows what.
Stop it. I'm an
There's
honest.
got to be some ripped mattress tags laying around somewhere.
Ripping off the tag of a mattress.
But it
That's
could
my-
be something as stupid as
Critical.
that. But if a prosecutor really wants to be special about you,
Oh,
like
yeah,
we just
no.
had that discussion earlier about, if the government really wants to get you, they will.
You show me the man, I'll show you the crime.
And a point that Hector pointed out was, and I never even thought of is honestly the Smithsonian probably could take the skull, throw it in, use it in an actual display, mislabel it as something else. It could sit there for years and nobody even knows the difference.
Well, and that may in fact be the case,
right.
and we don't realize it. That's not even conspiratorial. That's just reality.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was me
Hello,
pleading
James.
the fifth.
They get the dogs on Baker. What happened? Oh no, he left. What happened?
Oh,
No, he's
okay.
back. I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with everybody, folks. We've run to that point of the show, guys. I think this, good fun topics there. As Baker's getting dogged by the popo. We'll get him out of jail, folks. Don't worry. We'll bail him out. Been a good show tonight, guys. We've all been tired up. It's been a long weekend. I want to thank you all for listening. We don't know what the show will be for the next time, so stay tuned, stay listened, stay focused. Henry, give them those parting words.
Sorry, baby.
Y'all be good.
Yeah.
Be good at it.
The hell was it? All right, folks. You keep on squatching. We'll see you next time.